Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. This is the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream, and all the sane people are here, so we're looking forward to a pretty good show. I'm going to need you to like, subscribe, hit the alert bell, let all your friends know we're live. We will take questions from the troll box, all of that jazz. Why is my internet saying my connection is bad? This is not good. We're going to do our best, everybody. Caveat here, I have this nagging cough, so if you see me like muting or coughing, or if I need to disappear for a moment, that's why. I don't know what it is, like nagging. It's not COVID, it's not the flu, it's like this vague cold that just like it won't come all the way on and it won't go all the way away. Maybe my wife is poisoning me. I wouldn't necessarily blame her, but we're going to have a very messy show, and that is both a pun but also true, as we have one of my one of my good friends, Christopher Messina, who is basically experienced in everything as far as I can tell. Financial markets, world travel, global politics. He's a blockchain guy, but he's got a whole lot to say about basically everything. Like, I have yet to find a topic where he didn't like know the person I was talking about and understand all the history and context, economics, incentives, and all of that. So if you've got really weird questions, let's get messy with Mr. Messina. Don't be afraid to put him in the troll box. We need to thank our sponsors as well. Rock Wallet is our perennial and maybe forever sponsor of the show. If you want to keep your BTC, BCH, BSV, ETH, stable coins, and the new MNEE money token in a wallet, Rock Wallet allows you to do all of those things non-custodially, or you can also custodialize in order to make exchanges right in the wallet for super convenience. Also KYC and AML compliance. So thank you to Rock Wallet for your continued support of the show. We appreciate you immensely. And I am not just a fan because I am paid to be one. We were actually users at Gorilla Pool before the show was sponsored by Rock Wallet. It's actually a good product. And we only work with people we like. That's kind of the rule here. We also, if we get a comment of the day, we will give away a deck of cards from the Otherworldly TCG folks. So please prepare yourselves. Say something funny, edgy, whatever, something that mostly tickles the fancy of Mr. Producer, who is our super secret, kind of my doppelganger in more ways than one, also rocking from South Florida. And actually, now that I think about it, everybody on the show is a Floridian, so it's going to be that much more spectacular as we get into things. If you have not, a couple people also have asked. I put out a bounty 2 weeks ago to like $150 worth of BSV in order for people to produce some content, like a Kurt highlight reel, as it were. There's a whole conversation about it on my X account. If you want to participate, I've had a couple people ask me for an extension because today is the deadline. Today is September 2nd. It was supposed to be done today, but a couple people who I know are talented have said, Kurt, give me another day or two. So if you need that extra day or two, I'm not going to dole out the prize until I have found the thing that makes my heart sing. And so if you are still working on something, we can extend the deadline just a little bit. But at some point, I'm gonna chop it off. I may not give any notice that I have chopped it off and give out the prize. So I appreciate you, everybody, who's participating in that as well. Oh, I can feel my voice is already going to be giving me trouble today. So we should probably, check my pin post on X. I wrote an article about replacing the company called MoneyGram with an application protocol also called MoneyGram, but spelled differently. I think if anybody wants to work on how to make the world a better place with the power of blockchain and tokens, I have mapped it all out. And if you turn it into $1 billion business, cut me in for a little bit. But otherwise, no strings attached. You can have this business idea for free. And that's me just, so it's actually a Gary V thing. Gary Vaynerchuk used to do this up on stage. He'd say, hey, I got this business idea. And he'd pop it out and be like, I'm in a room full of entrepreneurs. Are any of you going to make this happen? And it was this challenge to the crowd. Like, hey, don't just be here paying me tickets to hear me talk about entrepreneurship. Get out and build a damn business. That's actually how you become an entrepreneur. That's the first step. So back in the day, I used to say print a business card and then you're in business. But now people don't print business cards. So maybe set up one of those dot tapper whatever and give yourself a title. Be the president of something LLC, and then you're an entrepreneur. So that's how you start. You can get started for like $150 in the great state of Florida. All right, let's cut to our ad from Rockwell, and then we'll be back with the enigmatic, utterly opinionated, and actually a professional broadcaster himself. So I imagine the show will be both technically competent and also he's a talker, much like I'm a talker. So we might set a new word count record on this CoinGeek Weekly live stream. So let's cut to the ad, and we will be right back. Welcome to the show. I always want to call you Mr. Messina because I respect the age hierarchy here. But Christopher, I don't know. Christopher, it just seems so. I think it's also because it's the long version, and so it almost sounds like, So Christopher, welcome to the show.
This is great. I got news for you, and thank you for the introduction. But oddly, I took a vow of silence starting in 7 minutes, so I'm going to mime.
Fair enough. You could have let us know before we got you on the air. But hang on. You know what? I have a child screaming through my door, and they know I'm on the air. So I'm going to make sure we're okay. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure. Shall I do some poetry readings while you're gone? Or
I have mail. That's what's I see my wife outside with 2 of the children, and my daughter has decided the mail, it requires urgent attention.
Daddy,
so
the mail is ticking. Do you want it?
Right? Yeah. What is it? Heavy?
From the Democratic National Convention.
Oh man, yeah, that's it. They're silencing me. So okay, let's reset a little bit. Christopher. Yes. You do a show. It's kind of a mix of finance, politics, and basically your opinion on the ways of the world. Most of which I agree with, but you're a little more hard right. I'm a little more libertarian, and so we disagree on some of the finer points. But overall, I think you're quite an astute fellow, and I think even where we disagree, you have a very reasonable reason why you come to your conclusions. But
very kind of you. How revolutionary in these fragmented times.
Right. Right. As opposed to me calling you a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, and hitting the cancel button, I think we can actually talk.
You can't strip me of my titles.
So let's talk just a little bit about some of your background, because you have a heck of a resume. Just so people know who you are on the show. Sure. What's your story?
Grew up in New York. Went to the University of Chicago, where I was pre-med until my 3rd year of college. And I went home and I spoke to every physician that I or my family knew, like a good pool of people, 25, 30 people. All of whom looked at me and said, "Are you insane? Why would you want to do this? I've got a mortgage and kids in college." Like, get out, do something else. So I went back to school and I looked around and I realized that all the biology classes I'd been taking as part of the medical school prep were cross-listed with the biology department, the medical school, and the anthropology department. So I thought, I'm actually almost done with an anthropology degree. So maybe I'll go check out where the cultural anthropology classes are happening. I walked into a classroom and I was like, this is where all the pretty girls are. So I've been in the chem lab. I've been in terrible places. Bone lab at 3 a.m. I was actually one of those people I love the show Bones, and my daughter loves it because she's going into kind of medical anthropology. And so that was like literally our test was, they gave you a bone this big and you'd be like 35-year-old female, died of leprosy, right? So it got used to that sort of stuff. But I ended up with a degree in anthropology, Islamic history, and Arabic. And then I moved to Africa to go into industrial sales. So I was in South Africa. I got there 4 weeks after the fall of the apartheid government.
Good timing.
Oh, it was perfect. I mean, it was the honeymoon period, right? Yeah. Where there was a lot of optimism for the Rainbow Nation. Said optimism has diminished considerably since then. But it was a phenomenal time to be there because it truly was a very optimistic time, and it was great in the very real sense that Americans don't understand Africa. Period.
Yeah, no,
Like, if you haven't lived there, you
not
really
at all.
don't get it. They see it through the lens of America, black-white relations. It's got nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
And so, I would sit and talk with, Kaza or Undabele or Zulu guys who would tell you that, their grandmother's house in District 6 had been blown down, and his cousin had been tortured to death by the apartheid police. But they would tell me this with no more emotional inflection than it rained yesterday. That was one of those fascinating things to really realize, that people really do view the world differently through different cultural lenses.
Sure.
So anyway, but for a professional standpoint, it's phenomenal. I spent 6 years in Africa, between Morocco and South Africa. Had a great time.
Anything in between those two places, or
no, there's nothing of interest in between, actually.
That's funny.
So as soon as it began to get a little bit chilly, I get in a plane and go across the equator. So I lived perpetual summer. It was fantastic.
Nice. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. But I endured the kind of the headaches and the growing pains of Africa and Islamic terrorism. So, by the time Al-Qaeda tried to, blow me up on September 11th in Manhattan, I'd already been bombed 3 times by Islamists. So I was getting, that day on 9/11, I came home to my wife, who luckily was home and not downtown at the time. And I walked through the door and said, "This is getting personal."
I picture like just like the marginally irritated sigh at the first explosion. Just
right. Stuff to do today.
Right.
But it's a miracle I'm here, because I actually had a meeting at Bridge in the Towers on September 12th at 9 a.m.
Jeez.
So
wow.
I would have been there. Anyway, long and short of it is, it's been a rollicking career. I came back and went to work at Goldman. I was still a partnership, and I laugh now because I'm getting old enough when I hear people like, "Well, I'm working in fintech." I said, "I created your entire industry category. Like, it didn't exist."
Yeah.
Right. And what I found, especially, I like your comments about kind of entrepreneurship. I've got a risk appetite, which just may be native. I come from a risky entrepreneurial family, but I was at dinner with my wife and a few friends years ago. We just begun to have kids, and someone was talking about they're going down to the Bahamas, and they're very excited because they were going to go to the casino. And I said, I just don't get it. I don't gamble. I don't understand that. Yeah. And now this is a room full of people who know me, some my whole life, some through college and high school, and there's silence. They look at me like I'm absolutely nuts. And I said, "What are you talking about?" And a friend of mine's like, "You take daily risks with your entire family's future that would keep any of us awake at night. Of course you don't find blackjack exciting. That's for middle managers who want to feel a little crazy."
Yeah, so, for sure.
I don't know, but anyone who's going to do an entrepreneurial path has to have some tolerance for risk. Mine may be, psychotically abnormal, but it's been helpful because, if you see things objectively, you don't get emotionally entangled. You can make
decisions. Yeah. So I know you also have a background in rare earth mineral mining, and I think that's kind of where your blockchain conversation starts. Can we walk me through a little bit? How did those things traverse each other?
Sure. Well, it's I actually was interviewed by an old friend, Patrick Young, who it kind of started off this whole fintech revolution years ago with his book Capital Markets Revolution, which is about electronic markets taking over open outcry. So when I began my career, we were literally dealing with, people screaming at each other in funny colored jackets on the floors in London, New York, and Chicago. And I was part of the kind of efficient process that moved a lot of that online. There are long philosophical debates about whether price discovery is better or just different, qualitatively different now that it's all on a screen versus, in front of you. But because I was so very heavily involved in those markets, half my career has been advanced technology, creating better exchanges, working on efficiencies and clearinghouses, data algorithms, data science for better trading, kind of Renaissance capital type stuff. The other half was in real world commodity trading because I was always looking for the edge, and there's only so much efficiency you can get in very liquid stock markets. But the margins in physical commodities, whoa, fantastic, right? And not futures markets where people do make money trading futures, but like the best example I give, and this is not a digression. This is a solid straight line answer to you. So one of my favorite examples of the differences in commodity markets that are physical versus futures is on a very, 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 very volatile day in natural gas in New York on the NYMEX. The natural gas contract traded between, say it opened at $9.50 per MMBTU, closed at $10.50 per MMBTU, and there was very significant intraday volatility. So, and then there's also a cash spot market for a real amount of that physical gas, which is sometimes trading in tandem, but sometimes not. What was the intraday high that day in natural gas in New York Harbor physical delivery? Started at $9.50, closed at $10.50. Very volatile. What was the highest?
12, 13.
$105.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right? So exactly.
That is a big jump.
Wow. That's the difference between if you hold the physical, and there are reasons for that, right? Hot day in August, peaking plants go on. And then because it's a blended price, because Americans have been dumb enough to allow public utility boards to set prices, it's all cost plus. So when a peaking plant in Jersey desperately needed that 30,000 MMBTU, and they went out into the market for it, and the genius, I think I know which trading desk it was actually, had physical supply in the harbor. They just kept jacking it until he finally capitulated and said, all right, fine, 105 if you can do it.
Wow.
The price before that was probably 18, and the price after that was probably 30, right? But that's the point of a physical market. If you're there, you capture it. So drawn to things that make you money. So that's very heavily into commodity trading, helping build exchanges, helping develop asset management models that made trading of those better, meaning better for us. And as a result of that, got into mining. So I was asked to join mining company boards, become an executive there, because mining is still very much an old school, dirt under your fingernails, don't trust fruitcakes with cufflinks kind of business. They hate bankers. Like, what are you doing? It drives them nuts. So anyone with a degree of market knowledge who was not afraid to go down underground, 2 miles deep in South Africa, I found a great place there. And part of my career, part of what I say to people who are starting out, if you treat your career to some degree like improv theater, you probably won't go wrong. Meaning,
I love that.
The main tenet of improv is when you're handed a line, you say yes and. Because you say no, it's just not funny and it stops. And similarly, people offer you something new to do. Say yes. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to fail?
While you were in Chicago, did you spend any time at the Second City? Because sounds like
I knew those guys really, really, really well.
Yeah. So it sounds like a premise.
And a lot of them fed from off campus, which was the University of Chicago troupe that fed into Second City. In fact, one of the women I dated, I will not name her because she'd be very angry. She went into Second City and later became really, really famous in New York on improv stuff and
Sure.
I would not name her; she'd be angry. But that's more regret than anything, I'm sure.
I was gonna say, going by age, I'm like, well, okay.
Don't try to back it out.
Victoria Jackson, or
don't try to back it out. But at least she didn't become gay, which would be
right.
Thank you for your input.
You flipped it right. You flipped her the wrong way, Christopher.
But so in large measure, because of that, I got heavily involved in mining. And once again, am I, as a guy who's looking to create an edge in trading, going to be drawn to bulk markets and iron ore, which are negotiated once every 3 years between the Aussies and the Chinese communists. There's no margin. There's no money to be made, right? It's a volume game. So when you move down to kind of more critical minerals, the things that are harder to price, more volatile, no markets. And I got introduced to the founding geologist of this mine in Greenland called Tanbreeze. And much like many other things, I love mining geologists in the sense that they're like any other category of profession, right? There are some things that are pretty clear. You give someone a set of assays in the Pilbara in Western Australia, 99 out of 99 of geologists are going to come up with the same resource estimate for the iron ore that's there, right?
Yeah.
But you get into weirder stuff like the eudylite deposit that we got in Greenland. You can give that same data to 100 geologists, and you might get 98 kind of agree, and 1 or 2 say, "No, whoa, you're looking at this all wrong." Right? Because of the way these slopes intercept, and I really think what we've got down here is going to be very, very different, and it's going to be a massive deposit. He was one of those guys. He put a lot of his own money into it. He turned out to be right where many were wrong. So again, I like that, right?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And I joined him to kind of turn it to, eventually became the chief strategy officer and the CEO. And in July of 2019, I brought him to the White House to talk with the Trump administration about the importance of our rare earth mine to U.S. national security. And 5 days later, Trump offered to buy the country. So that's my direct contribution to World Kabuki Theater, for which I was rewarded with multiple government officials in Greenland calling me and saying, "What did you tell him?"
That's funny. Yeah.
I didn't say anything. Anyway.
Oh yeah, it's a small country too, right? Like, hey man, you went to the White House and all of a sudden we got Trump flying in and hanging out. Yeah.
I actually had the Greenland attaché, the commercial ambassador to North America, on my show. And he reiterated to Mr. Trump and everyone else that Greenland is open for business, was not for sale. So, and there's been a lot more noise recently about this. But in the end, the project is phenomenal. I did what a good CEO is supposed to do, put things in business order, and engineered a competitive process and sold the mine for a marvelous return to our shareholders, to a great team who was advancing the project, right? So very few, especially in mining, very few teams go from exploration to find the asset to actually building it in production. Those tend to be different skill sets. And so I was very happy that we got it to an exploitation license when you can build a mine. A great relationship with the people in Greenland, spent a lot of money there and developed it and sold it to another team, which is, doing a great job. So I was very excited about it.
Good for everybody.
And sorry, the NFT. Part of the intersection was because I had done so much structured commodity financings before in various spaces, sinking funds for oil wells, participation rights in mining projects, smelter rights. So there are a lot of ways to finance a physical commodity production business. And because at the end of the day, it's really driven by people who need the product. No matter all the financial clowns in between trying to shave some profit in between by betting, in reality, it's driven by Kellogg's needs to buy hard winter wheat to make cornflakes, or Boeing needs to buy specialty minerals so they can make motors for their, all that sort of stuff. So because of that, my team and I had already built out, before I got Tanbreeze, financially, had built out structured financings that were both Sharia compliant, in compliance with Islamic law, which was also happened to be in compliance with kosher Jewish law and medieval Christian law, canon law, which was helpful for those who really cared. Many didn't, but so we already built that. And then I realized, like, we can put this, I can make this an NFT, right? This is perfect. That we can provide, rights to streaming, offtake, by production year, by production lot. And the beauty of it was, it wasn't a fungible instrument. So it wasn't a financial instrument. It was truly a one-to-one claim against assets in time of production out of the smelter. We put all that together and went out and speak to the market about it. And one of the greatest calls I ever had was the two friends who will remain nameless here. You actually go on my podcast to hear them, but I'm not going to. Both of them are senior officials at the SEC and CFTC. So the two, commodity trading and SEC, and got on a conference call. I shared with them the structure, and there was silence for like 30 seconds, and they said, "Messina, you did it. You slid right between us.
Yeah.
It's not regulated by the CFTC. It's not regulated by the SEC. How did you do that?" Like, this is when crypto people were losing their minds, right? In the
It's going back 5 or 6 years ago or something. Yeah.
Warren wanted to shut everything down, and I was like, "This is perfectly fine."
Yeah.
And so the great news was we got huge interest from oddly European investors who were, which are usually kind of more risk averse to new things.
Yeah.
But they were industrial users, loved it. And the only thing that stopped us from filling the whole order was I sold the company. Right? It was one of the reasons I think that the buyers were interested, because nothing makes a buyer more interested than there's an alternative financing. And we could have funded the whole thing with that equity. So and it's still a great structure. I look forward to someone else doing it soon.
Yeah. It's really exciting. Actually, you've gone through so many things that, when you talk about a company that actually needs fuel or actually needs cobalt or actually, these things. And, we get all these, Robin Hood kids who all think they're, professional traders now or whatever, and they're trading like Dogecoin for GameStop for, and they're playing these games all, I think they think that's how like a Goldman trader is like, everything's just numbers and money and, it's all very heady. Right. But in reality, all of these instruments existed because, hey man, a guy in Kansas wants to buy cattle in Texas, and how the hell do you make that deal? Right. And so it'd be brokered by people 150 years ago via telegraph. And people didn't, I think we're so separate from it. And I think partially it's because of the fact that it's all on screen, and the fact now that, people have worked from home largely for 5 years, and like nobody's touching anything that's real anymore. And so we have this very, hence the meme coin economy and that kind of thing. But like what are your thoughts on blockchain being used, 99% for basically nonsense? I mean, Elon's cum coin or, whatever. And like, there are guys making money on stuff like this, but it's so goofy that like, that has to just frustrate you to death, given your experience.
Yeah. I'm philosophical because the bulk of that crap is worth zero and will go to zero.
Yeah.
And so, are some people making frothy profits right now? Some are, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I saw this great thing someone posted on X the other day. The question was, what part of the crypto cycle is this? And it shows two typical crypto hotties, like 22 if they're, I don't know if they're legal. And one of them's like, I got $1.3 billion in XRP. And the community says it's going to go to 50 and I'm going to be rich forever, right? And her friend, this blonde, is sitting there going, I want a crypto boy to help me. I don't know what X means. And so it was great. But I loved it. But what it reminded me of is that Joe Kennedy, the one who made all the money to let his sons, presidents and senators.
Yeah, if you're exactly the right kind of gangster, your kid gets to be the president.
Exactly. Make sure you're the right kind of gangster, right? Joe Kennedy, the world's biggest drug dealer ever, right? He said, he got out of the market. He was one of the few people that got out of the market before the crash in 29.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And someone said, why did you get out of the stock market? He said, I got out of the stock market when my shoe shine boy started giving me stock tips.
Yeah.
Right? And I thought of these two bimbos. I don't know what X is. And I was like, wow, there you go.
There it is. Yep.
So to the extent that anyone is making money or not, and when it comes to netting out and the income taxes, you're all going to have to pay with interest when they find you, and they will. I don't think anyone's – there are very few people. The distribution of people making money is the same as it always is. Yeah. Right. And so to me, I've looked at lots of blockchain projects, right? We've been over this. I spoke at the London Blockchain Conference, right? I've looked at a lot of projects, and I'm always looking for what's the real business use, right? I don't need, knucklehead coin. Like really, what is the point of this? And so I've looked at a lot of projects, and I helped a couple guys who already set up companies and they were trying to do stuff, and that's a tale of its own woe. And one of them did not collapse because of the blockchain; it collapsed because they were idiots. Nice guys, I wish them well. I hope they learn, but whatever. They also had a kind of a younger view of like, it's all going to be great because I had the idea. I'm already rich. Well, it doesn't work that way. And then, this is not remotely an infomercial, but because I then met these guys at QPQ, who you met, they actually built something that works, right? It's Bitcoin 3.0 and it works, right? So now that we got something that works, my entire focus in working with them and having invested is helping real companies build real stuff. Sure. And there are huge real world applications, many of which have gotten derailed because boards of directors are presented with this, here's a blockchain thing, and all they hear is Drunk Monkey Yacht Club and their daughter sent to the bimbos who have $3 billion worth of XRP, right? So, but I think a lot of that's washing out, and reality and adults are starting to come in. It'll be less fun, but it will actually make money.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's the funny thing. I think at this point, every board executive's got a kid or a nephew or somebody that's either made a bunch by accident or lost a bunch, thinking they were going to be rich. Yep. And, so they have their opinion. It's actually been my experience too, is I'll pitch a blockchain idea to a real company and they're like, you know what? We had Ethereum guys in here 5 years ago. We kind of greenlit a sandbox and it sucked. And then some other group came in after to say, oh no, we're way better than the Ethereum guys. And then sandbox and it sucked. And now, I'm the blockchain guy and they look at me and they're like, man, why would we give you a third shot? Like what makes you any different than, because these people are still squawking at me. They're still getting the calls from the Ethereum people like, hey man, when are you going to let me back in to, save your life? Yep. And it's such a weird, I don't know. It's just such a weird economy, but like you said, when you have a tool that actually works, I mean, it's actually the underlying tech that's the most efficient payment and data integrity technology that's ever existed.
Greatest thing ever.
And nobody's using it.
Risk management and clearance settlement processes on Wall Street. It's heaven on earth, right? The reason we're getting places, I said to the team we're working with, that success on the commercial side, right? So the three pillars to any blockchain, as you well know, right? There are people who are mining the gajus, which is the Bitcoin. Then there's the people, trading the currency, make it market, to keep a price stable. But then the third leg, which is the one that we're really focusing on, which everyone else has ignored or has not executed as well as they could.
Can't find
a real application. So what we've been doing is we are deep into real applications with real companies, with real stuff. And I said to the team, one of the hallmarks of success we're going to have is when we get an entire deal done, including signed and into implementation, without the non-technical side of the customer ever hearing the word blockchain.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Because it doesn't matter, right? When you go sell a supply chain risk management system or a data management system or whatever to Kellogg or Pfizer, or they don't care. You think that the CEO is asking, now is that going to be in Postgres or SQL? Like they have no clue, nor do they care. And so the biggest headache has been, and maybe I'm giving too much information to competitors who will use it, but they probably won't.
They won't.
They won't. Is that you're all so excited about the tech, you walk in going blockchain, and no one cares. It doesn't matter. When I tell you we're going to give you a literally bulletproof, auditable trade tracking system, which by definition cannot have erroneous entries, by definition is immutable, by definition allows you to trust the message, not the messenger. When they hear that, they now dive into the use case. The technical team is going to hear blockchain. Of course they are, because they're going to build it.
Yeah, right.
But I'm rigorous, and we work great. It's a great team. We've got a really great team. So the only solid rule I have is here, I'm going to throw squishy tomatoes at anyone who says the word blockchain to a non-technical buyer. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter. It does not matter to them. Right. They don't know.
So then I have to ask, like, what is your sort of key differentiator part of your pitch then when you're talking to clientele, like databasing technology? What does that come into play?
We got an entire solution because what they've built, and I will toot their horn for this, right? Because the one thing I love what the guys did was, rather than go the crypto bro route, and I can piss them off because they piss me off, ignoring all kinds of VC money where it's, we're going to do an ICO and an airdrop and a foundation, blah, blah, blah. And all of it means I'm going to take a lot of money off of retail investors, buy another Maserati, and live in Puerto Rico. Good for you. Right? Congratulations, Mazel Tov.
That is the template. Yeah.
The template. And he says that it works. It does. It doesn't mean the company succeeds. It means they get more money. So we have eschewed that sort of funding. We've had real investors build the tool out. And it finally is when the CEO, Greg Chu, said to me the first time, we've built the first actual blockchain that actually works. My response viscerally was that's ridiculous. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Right.
Because I know that at Goldman and Fidelity and Morgan Stanley and people are using the blockchain for things, right? So saying that we've built the first actual blockchain that actually works sounded hyperbolic at best.
Sure.
Ridiculous.
Well, he's one of 1,000 people saying that. So yeah.
But the magical thing is they did, right? This is a bunch of really, really focused spectrumy guys. I say that with love, gentlemen, who really are focused on, getting this right. And so part of where you mentioned, the guys from ETH came in 5 years ago, and then Cardano. The beautiful thing is we've appeared, or QPQ has appeared at the right time, that so many attempts have been made to build things that actually corporate technical users have seen the strengths and relative weaknesses and the places where there are gaps in the offerings. It doesn't mean that everything out there is useless. It's not. There are plenty of things. Right. It's good for creating the smart contract. It's good for this. But for the whole chain, from data entry, distributed ledger testing, zero trust proof, all the way through to an audit trail and the ability to transact value in a trustless environment without risk of loss, that's pretty well done. And so that's where we're getting the great feedback from corporate buyers is, had they not been through the pain, had they not been lied to and started down the road with projects that didn't work, we'd face a higher hurdle. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. And I think there are others, obviously, who probably will be getting there too, because as the technology matures and there are real uses, you will be rewarded for building a tool that works versus number go up. Sure.
So, well, speaking of number go up, like in the case of BSV, like, number just go down. And so, no incentive for anybody to be a scammer in BSV, which I guess is, a good thing, but
a plus there in some way, right?
let's find a silver lining somewhere. But, just for the sake of conversation, and because I think it's my fault that you like scalable blockchains in the first place.
Yes, if you're the one that turned me into a big blocker. You did
correct. So and you've been involved in some BSV projects and things like that, but you've obviously pivoted a bit. And so I'm curious if you could give a piece of advice, like, why go the direction of another blockchain given the situation in BSV? Like what is the key thing that made you say, let's work on another project?
I would, it's funny, and I'll say it here because I've already said it, but I would strongly suggest actually that the technical parts of BSV and the Gajimara chain, there should be merged. Like I think there's a great argument for BSV Association to sit down with us for a long conversation. Yeah. I think you guys have built great tools on bits of this, but for a unifying architecture that is a common resource layer, we built a better one. And so, and we're happy to defend that. We're happy to defend that conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
We should go have that. That would be my main advice to the BSV Association would be, let's sit down and find out the way that, this should be the underpinning for, back up a second. For your users, your audience may get this, but I love having this conversation with a lot of folks who are even Silicon Valley types, right?
Yeah.
Right. So everyone knows error 404, the page not found, right?
Yep.
It's less and less common as the internet sort of self-heals or moves you to something else when you try to put in something. But it's really hard to force an error 405. Have you ever done that, or have you seen it?
I know of it, but yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it myself. Not in my actual use.
It's really tricky to force the internet to give you error 405.
Yeah.
And this is what I love about economic history and how things develop. And arguably part of, you know, my background in anthropology is better than getting an economics degree at Chicago. Is that all this is a cultural artifact, no matter what we think about how we think about things. So after Al Gore created the internet, I can never resist, right? There were multiple committees, right?
Yeah.
Engineers whose jobs, God bless them, are, I don't even know how they do it. Good. I can't relate to that mindset. I love they exist. Very diligent. So there are multiple working committees around the internet protocol, right? As you well know, HTTPS is now the transfer protocol for data on the internet, right? But that wasn't always the case. There were 4 or 5 options for how one would transfer data across the internet.
Yep.
And it turned out to be that it makes sense that there be only one. There's no utility value to there being different types of transfer protocols. So eventually those collapsed down to HTTPS. Similarly, the guys who created the internet, some of them thought, even though they were engineers, someone's probably going to try to transmit economic value across the internet. There will be someone who, for whatever reason, wants to probably buy porn, probably the usual thing, who's going to want to spend money, and we got to figure out a way they can do that. So there was a working group which we dedicated to the value transfer protocol, which would be a complement or sit side by side with the data transfer protocol, which we all know as HTTPS. By an accident of history, when Jeff Bezos was setting up Amazon and others were creating storefronts, Jeff looked at that and saw, wow, this is where error 405 comes in. There's no way to transport data. There's no way to transport value or money
on
the internet yet. Rather than wait for the glacially paced working groups that created the internet, he's like, I've got to sell books today. So he called Visa and said, hey, could you be the payment processor for my online bookstore? They said yes. And that one, and that's a vast simplification, but that one decision between online sellers of goods and services and the credit card companies basically put a bullet in the 405 working committee, because why bother? Problem solved. These will take care of it. Well, as what I always loved about Bitcoin from the very beginning, and what I love more once it became a big blocker in real time on your show, is that the whole point of Satoshi's vision was radical economic inclusiveness, right? Not number go up, not Visa, which is a $5 minimum and 2.5% charge, which works fine in the developed world, the first world economy. So so there's another 2% charge on my book. Whatever, they're going to deliver it to me. That's great. But if you are in any one of the bottom third of countries in terms of GDP per capita, right, where earning $600 U.S. equivalent is a good living, like you can feed yourself, and you might have a business that says, I will use my motorbike and ride into the next town and punch 3 people you tell me to for 30 cents. Don't know why, but that could be a business, right? Let's say it's a grudge-based economy.
There you go. I like it.
Right? If so, 30 cents, 3 names, I will go punch 3 people for you in the next town. So you don't have to go do it. Right? In today's market, you couldn't do that with Visa. Visa will not take a charge under $5 or whatever the number is. So because of that one interesting change in the developed economies about how goods and services were sold on the internet, they never solved that problem. The original Bitcoin vision was to solve that problem so that when QPQ eventually came, and one of the core targets for the Gajimara, which is the blockchain we built, was we need to do 10 to 20,000 transactions for under a penny with settlement time within 9 seconds, which is no different than standing at a grocery store with your Visa card buying groceries, right?
Right.
They've accomplished that. So that, I think, is the big change, and where lots of pieces have been built, whether for NFTs, for supply chain, lots of different folks have built smart things. And we're not saying get rid of the thing you built on Cardano or get rid of the thing you built on Solana or ETH or BSV or anything. That all stays.
Yeah.
But from a standpoint of a backbone, we urge you to look at, connected to this protocol.
Yeah. Well, and it's smart. I understand why. I've often said if something exponentially better came around, I really am in it for the business opportunity of the underlying tech. Like I think BSV is special because it's the only group of people that looked at it and said, hey, if only 10,000 people can use the system before it breaks, then right. If it wins, it loses. And that's a stupid business to get into. But ultimately, we want to be able to do business with 1 billion people at a time. Frankly, if we really want to be, cooking with gas, we got to be talking 5-6 billion people at a time, because the other two, can't read or write and probably don't want to do the digital economy anyways. But it's such a travesty when I look at the way that people treat this tech. And it reminds me, it reminds me of a lot of things. You get the people that, wanted to, it's kind of like Henry Ford said, like, if I would have asked people what they wanted, they would have asked for a faster horse, right? And it's this general lack of vision that the average person has relative to their life. And they look at their life and say, I don't know, make my life 10% better. But it really takes a visionary to say, okay, I'm gonna go, 5 years.
Stuff you've never heard of.
Right.
When you get there, you're going to be delighted.
Exactly. Yeah. But you're going to laugh at me for a decade. It's like I have to picture like Noah building the ark for 70 years with everybody being like, bro, rain doesn't exist, And so,
no, but I've heard it. It's coming, I swear.
Yeah, no, guys, I don't know, man. Yep. It's I know what it's going to look like when it happens. And
you're going to hate it.
Right. Yeah, that price really goes up. You're going to have to pay a lot to get me to open the door back up. But it's funny. It's funny in the most tragic sense, frankly. But to look at this opportunity now, like 15 years down the road, just look at the opening line of the white paper. It's commerce on the internet. And then Satoshi goes in to describe a very plain text, simple English problem of, PayPal and Visa, MasterCard, whatever. There's this limit that is pushing out exactly the person that you mentioned, your 30 cents a day people. And, now, I mean, we still really haven't traversed that. Like we kind of look at it, or you get people that are, well, what about Venmo? What about PayPal? What about Zelle? Or, the Chinese WeChat and all that. But it's you're still talking about dollars. You're not talking about cents. You're not talking about the 2 billion people or whatever that would absolutely be doing penny commerce digitally if they had the ability to. And I don't know. We're going to get there.
I think we are closer than you think, largely because, Ray Kurzweil's great insight is that technological development is logarithmic, which for all of you out there who recoiled with pain after log in high school, I'm now going to make you cry because you can only understand this if you go do a refresher. That for a long time, geometric and additive processes look just like logarithmic processes over time. The problem is that, geometric projection will only begin to go up slowly, but at the exact same inflection point where your doubling mechanism begins to go up like this, your log function shoots up like this, meaning that the process of development and growth and evolution is actually happening at a much faster scale. But humans who are not natively quantitative, right? We're storytellers, and that is our main limitation as apes, is that those of us who are better quantitatively are viewed as weird, right? And from a human standpoint, they are. From an understanding of where the world is going, they're more clear thinking. But we are at that point where I think a lot of development has gone in on projects that are suddenly, it's going to be like I remember selling. I had a good friend of mine call me the day out of the blue. I've known him for years. He said, I got to tell you, for whatever reason, whether you're smart or lucky, I don't care which, you've been right earlier about more things than I can count. Right. So I sold a natural language generation AI system to the world's oldest consolidated utility company in the country 8 years before ChatGPT or OpenAI was talked about, right? So I've seen the ability of what these things can do. I've been massively ignored repeatedly by people who don't see that vision. But right now, people sitting, high school students will type in and get a pump out of their essay, which is not doing them any good, but that's their problem. But I've seen the adoption of things earlier, and I know that they are coming, right? So this Africa is a great example. I lived and worked there for a long time. You've got a lot of people who are pictographically, technically capable without being literate, right? So you got Maasai herders who contract to sell their cows on a cell phone who don't know how to read. Now, wrap your brain around that. You need to know how to read to use a visual tool where you literally bank 3 cows, right? They're not literate, but gosh, they're numerate. They sure know what Kenyan pounds versus dollars mean, right? So a lot of technological development jumps to the need without going through the process it went for before. That's why most of Africa and big chunks of Latin America went directly to cell towers with no need for landlines.
For sure.
Right?
Yep.
So I'm actually fairly optimistic at this point that a lot of the hard yards and effort were done, and the development of tools based on a distributed ledger, which is all blockchain is, right? I mean, we used to laugh. You remember the film The Graduate, right, with Dustin Hoffman?
Oh yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it in a lot of years, but
right. But we used to roar with laughter because as on Wall Street, as Bitcoin began to get more traction, the great moment by the pool where his father's friend says, "Hey, plastics, we'll talk," right?
Right.
We would just laugh and tell people, Bitcoin.
Right.
But here it's finally coming to fruition. I think a tragic accident of history, which Michael Saylor will vehemently disagree with because now he's talking his book, because why wouldn't he, right? Much like everybody on the prison yard is innocent.
He's in. Yeah, he's got a
he's long this trade. He's beyond playing with the house's money. So he has no room for doubts. And I think he honestly believes it. So who cares? I sent a talk of his to someone. And God bless them for what they've done, right? The bet turned out okay so far. I said, I want you to listen to him because I've been talking to them about what we're doing at QPQ, about the Gajamara, about a blockchain that actually works. I said, I want you to listen to him talk about Bitcoin, BTC, for these 25 minutes. Nowhere in those 25 minutes does he claim it works for anything.
Right.
He keeps talking about it's a treasury asset. That's not a thing, right? That's a phrase he invented. Anything that you buy and hold on to, hoping it will have value later, can be a treasury asset. But his genius and the genius of the crypto bro community as a whole is, I tell people, especially who know Wall Street well, whenever somebody invents a new phrase for which there's already a word, they're lying to you. When they say, "Well, we're staking," no, you're lending. No, we're not lending. We're staking. No, you're lending. That's it. It's called lending. It's not staking. It's lending. And the fact that you need to create a fake word for it means that you're trying to A, dodge the regulators, B, lie to retail customers. So I think all of that stuff is coming to a head, and it's a tragedy because had BTC gone to 30 cents, to $1, to $5, to $2, to $3, to $1, had it bounced around a reasonable foreign exchange kind of trading range, the incentive would have been to build the full functionality. And then they had no incentive to do so.
Right. Well, right.
Not news to the BSC community, but it's news to a lot of the world.
No, but in fact, it not only do they not have the incentive, they have the severe disincentive to do anything other than just accumulate the asset. To the detriment. I say it all the time. I was on a big show about 2 weeks ago, And I told him, I'm like, yeah, I'm sitting here criticizing XRP and Ethereum and whatever. I said, but for every negative thing that I've ever said, I should have just bought more ETH because from from a pure dollars in, dollars out standpoint, it's silly to have to fight fate or fight whatever trend, but then also fight against to even attempt to build anything entrepreneurial, because even building a business on ETH would have been a worse idea than simply accumulating Ethereum.
It's a nightmare. I mean, the gas it's in fact, the guys that built the Gajimaro came out of part of the team that had built ETH. They saw all the flaws, and so they did it right this time and spent 8 years and $50 million building it. So I actually do think that this, Mr. Wuckert, is going to be a seminal video in blockchain history.
I wouldn't be shocked.
It really will, because the real applications are coming, both from big companies that see the real need and are pounding on the tech and not finding the holes they found in other solutions.
Yeah.
And somewhat, I'm not saying more importantly, every development is useful. Smaller entrepreneurial folks that are building apps based on this tech.
Yep.
That's where the huge explosive growth is gonna come from.
For sure.
That works. That's awesome. Right. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's gonna have 80 million users, and
well, and that's the power of it. I mean, that's why you would have wanted to invest in a company like Amazon 20 years ago, is that Amazon is not just a meme. It's not just a cute idea. Like, there were lots of cute ideas. Any number of startups 25 years ago could have been huge internet companies. But the thing that made Amazon different is just simply the fact that they just kept powering through it to provide value to the customer. And then ultimately, I mean, it's an unstoppable business at this point, because their customer base is deep and it's broad. Yeah. And how do you go back against
people
that?
That hate them still use them.
Exactly. Like you can again, it's like fighting fate, right? Like, I remember the people that used to not shop at Walmart because it's all Chinese imported or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you're poor, and why would you pay 80% more to go to the grocery store instead of go to Walmart for detergent and whatever? So it just kind of is. It's like, hey, capitalism works, and here's a really good example of it. And then the flip side of this, and this has always been my fear with Saylor, is that he's not just talking about MicroStrategy and whatever. He's trying to push this onto other companies. Like, he is soliciting, hey, Microsoft, instead of keeping $1 billion in cash or other assets or whatever, like, why don't you keep it in Bitcoin? And here's the problem, is that if that is successful, the board is going to look at that and say, maybe we should start pulling money from R&D and manufacturing and something, and just and storing it in BTC because it performs better for the stock. And then you start to turn actual valuable company stock into this amalgam of all the problems of the crypto economy.
Yep.
But the spillover benefit of that is like, hey, we're not going to do a new iPhone every year anymore. It's going to be every 5 years, and they're going to be way less exciting than they used to be. And so you start getting like this slowdown with asset hoarding being like a fundamental corporate strategy. Sure. I'm wondering, I mean, do you think we could live in a world where that actually happens and we end up seeing like a global depression because of it?
I think it's a good question, and it's a good hypothetical, because I tell everyone that holds BTC, I'll give you $50 for your position. $50 a coin? No, $50 for your position. I promise that's good for a year. Right?
Yeah,
right? Yeah. I know it's worth $9 billion now, but I'll give you $50. Because they're A, more and more people wouldn't do it. B, they went all in, and God bless them. But here's a good example of why that won't happen. And two of the people are dead, and it's long ago anyway. During the government-caused financial crisis of 07-08, when Fannie and Freddie printed money and called it housing, and made Americans give money to deadbeats because housing was the right, the usual lefty bullshit. Pardon my
totally fine.
And destroyed the world economy, and knew it too. And instantly went on TV saying, "Greedy bankers, greedy bankers, greedy bankers." Right? It was like this little hypnotic mantra. A I knew that the chairman and CEO of one of the world's biggest asset managers, old friend of mine, went to my college, and we were having lunch, and it's been a fraught time. And so one of the biggest disciplinary actions we had was the guy that ran our corporate bond portfolio, right? So massive asset manager, massive bond portfolio. And because of the way they were trading, when the world fell off a cliff and CDSs collapsed and everything collapsed, where they were anticipating making a yield which would be equivalent to, say, $350 million a quarter, right?
Yep.
They made $5 billion, and he was fired because he should not. That should not have happened. Just because it luckily went that way, we don't reward luck in professional asset management. There are hedges, there are strategies. Because to the board, his windfall of $5 billion, which we'll take, thank you very much, and we need to give you a bonus.
Thanks.
Fire you was as bad than losing $5 billion unexpectedly, right?
Sure.
So now, in reality, hey, the windfall came this way, and we can can that guy, and he annoys me, so yay. But it was one of those great examples where, had they been following the firm sanctioned and demanded hedging policies, he would have been stopped out of all of those winning trades.
Interesting.
It could not have ridden.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those great examples. But he made all the money. I was still fairly younger back then. I was like, but that's a great outcome. It's like, in theory, yes. But it could have easily been a $10
not
million
repeatable.
loss.
Is that the problem? Simply you can't repeat it, and it was rogue, and so sorry.
Well, I think that anyone who tries this strategy is going to be meaningless, because rational people are going to look at him. And I've had other people tell me, "Well, it's a treasury." I love liberal arts majors who don't know trading try to instruct me on traded markets. It's one of my favorite things ever. Actually, I've got many, but that's one of my favorites. There's nothing stable about this. It was $60,000 a coin before the election. Yeah. The Trumps found out a way to make the Biden crime family look like innocent public servants.
I know.
Hold my beer.
It's outrageous.
And so then it went to 100 and whatever it was, and now it's dropped down. Anything with that kind of volatility is not an asset you want on your books, because if I am a lender providing credit to such a corporation, and you tell me this is my balance sheet, I haircut the crap out of that. So if you have dollars or T-bills or gold bars, I will give you, 92 to 100% credit for that on a collateral basis. If you start to tell me I've got Brazilian C bonds and United Kingdom Sharia bonds, which are not the same thing, I'm going to haircut that 60%. And if you tell me your treasury asset is BTC, I'm going to give you credit for 4 cents on the dollar.
Sure.
So you as a corporation can do what you want, but the idea that you would get into this froth machine of crypto chatty as if that is a stable corporate suggestion, I don't see anybody doing that, and they shouldn't. And in hindsight, I'm going to look brilliant. And Michael doesn't care.
No, I agree. Right.
Does not care what happens.
Yeah. No, he's going to make his exit when he makes it. And yeah. Interesting. Well, we're a couple minutes over already. I'm curious. Do you want to anything you want to pitch? Anything you want people to check out? Check out your show, and the floor is yours.
Please always check out the Messy Time show, and feel free to buy a copy of my book, the one that gave Elon all his ideas about cutting the government that he still doesn't give me credit for, and I'm waiting for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's like, I'm delighted to come on, right? I mean, it's one of the great delights about my blockchain journey is getting to know you, and certainly the folks at CoinGeek have been, rational about sort of coverage and pushing this, and kind of the intelligence explaining to the world, both those who are currently excited by it and those who are interested. I would really say, and I know it's not an infomercial, I would really say, I'm not joking, when people look back at this chat where we talked about real world uses and a blockchain that works, and the Gajimaro, the QPQ build, I think it's going to be a big win. I think people are going to get it. So,
love it.
Those want to know more, and then the foreshadowing when they can see the BSV Gajumaro big announcement that will come in 3 to 12 months.
There you go. So, Christopher, always a pleasure. Please hang out after we cut and print. I want to talk to you for a few minutes after. And then we've got, do we got a comment of the day, Mr. Producer, here that we want to throw up? And
what do we got?
Yeah, let's fling one out there, and we'll get some otherworldly. It's gonna be.
What do we got?
You know what? She's right. That's
fantastic.
Thank you, Rachel. You're absolutely right. So please reach out to @RealCoinGeek on X. Let's wrap. Christopher, I will talk to you in about 45 seconds here off the air. Thanks again.
Bye, everybody.
Everybody, thanks for watching the CoinGeek Weekly live stream. I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. Do indeed check out Christopher Messina's show, The Messy Times. He really does have an incredible laundry list of A-list guests. An A-list in the absolute sense, like the kind of people that actually make the world move, are friends with Christopher. And so you should pay attention to what they talk about, because he goes deep with people and gets them a little off the cuff too. So like very, very natural talk. And you're talking to people that really do genuinely make the world move and shake and do all that. So everybody, go out there, be good to each other, do something good in the world, build a damn business. Everybody wants to talk about being an entrepreneur, but you're not an entrepreneur until you have a customer. So you're going to want to go do that. Please like, subscribe, hit the alert bell, let the digital overlords know that you do indeed appreciate our content. And we will see you next Tuesday, unless this cold somehow gets worse after week 4 or whatever it is, then we'll see. But please do like, subscribe, hit the alert bell. We'll see you next week at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the CoinGeek Weekly live stream. Share it to your friends. Kurt Wuckert Jr. saying goodbye.